Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire supported by Glenlivet Books. How should we view the terrible targeted killings of civilians in the valley, and how serious or worrying could the situation become? Those are two key issues I shall discuss today with the President of the Jammu and Kashmir People's Conference, Sajad Lone. Sajad Lone, in the last 20 days, we've seen the terrible targeted killings of 11, by some counts 12 civilians in the valley. Initially, the targets were Kashmiri Hindus and Sikhs. Now it seems to be any non-local, including Muslims. How do you view these killings?
Well, they're very sad, very unfortunate, and I, as a Kashmiri, feel terribly ashamed, even more. And given the helplessness that we really can't do, civilians don't have a big role in stopping killings. We do have a role in setting the social narrative, which hopefully we all will do. But operationally, we can do precious little. And it's a continuous process. We've seen these upheavals, we've seen these highs and lows of violence, and unfortunately we're caught in this terrible vicious circle. And I just hope it abates.
You used a very powerful emotional term. You say you feel ashamed of what's happening.
Oh, of course we do. It's happening on our land, and we're helpless.
Initially, when the killings began, the targets were Kashmiri Hindus and Sikhs, and there was a view in Delhi that this is perhaps being done by Islamist terrorists to ethnic cleanse the state. Now that the target seems to have become all non-locals, including Muslims, there is a view that this is being done to separate or divide Kashmir from the rest of the country and perhaps provoke a massive backlash against Muslims in the rest of India. Do these theories, these interpretations worry you?
There are, unfortunately, whatever way you look at it, the interpretations that come out, that emanate from them, are very, very dangerous. Whichever way you look at it. First it was, then a Muslim non-local was also killed. But Karan, at the end of the day, if this killing cycle is going to continue, a very, very unfortunate prediction that I'll make, it will end up finally with Kashmiris. Those Kashmiris who don't agree with the terrorists, who don't agree with their point of view. There have been killings, if you look at in the last 3 decades. Unfortunately, one of the problems with all the governments, union governments from 1989 has been to announce to their electorate in the rest of the country that things are fine. Things were never fine. The killings always took place. And if you look even today, the majority of the people killed has been Kashmiris and Kashmiri Muslims, since we're using the word Muslims and Hindus. It's been Kashmiri Muslims from both sides, whether it was the security forces or it was the guns of the terrorists. It is the Kashmiri Muslims which have taken the maximum hits.
Absolutely. People seem to forget that in recent days there have been an estimated 28, 29 killings. Over 20 have been Muslims, and most of those Kashmiri Muslims.
My father has been killed. I myself am a victim. So it's not that I couldn't help save him. It's very difficult for me to say that I can get up and save someone else. So when at times I see that many people are saying people are not doing enough. You had someone coming and stabbing a British MP a few days back. British society, apart from expressing condemnation, could not do a lot. Non-combatants or civilians are not supposed to go and operationally tackle terror. They can just, I can tell you that the people of Kashmir, whosoever I have talked to in private conversations, are devastated.
So come back to that issue that I raised a moment ago. Do you believe there is an attempt here at ethnic cleansing? Are we, in a sense, going back to the terrible dark days of the 90s?
Ethnic cleansing in a country like India is not possible. This is not a banana republic. We all know it will never happen. It cannot happen. There can be moments, 5 days, 10 days, 12 days, where you see that a particular community is being targeted. Beyond that, the state, I think, is strong enough to defeat even the thought of such.
So you don't accept this theory that's doing the rounds in Delhi of ethnic cleansing?
No, I don't. I wouldn't.
What about the other one? That this is a deliberate attempt to separate and divide Kashmir from the rest of the country and perhaps to provoke some sort of violent backlash against Muslims in the rest of India?
You see, attempts to othering us, Kashmiris, have been there for a very long time. And this is not the right moment to say, but maybe someday in the future when I talk to you, this othering has taken place both here also and by these terror elements also, to sort of alienate us, segregate us as something distinct.
And that you think is part of what's happening now?
That could be, certainly.
Let me ask you this. Who is doing it? Who's responsible? The press, presumably given information by the government, is speculating that it's a group that calls itself the Resistance Force, and they are supposed to be avatars of the LET. Do you believe there's credibility in that theory?
You see, this is a very dark space. You know, we have no idea who is who, and these are. You have to understand that these are people with guns in their hands, and names hardly matter. Whether it's Karan, whether it's Sajad, it hardly matters. So I really wouldn't, you know.
In other words, who's doing it doesn't matter. That it's happening is what matters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what impact this has had on the valley. Newspaper reports say that Sikhs and Pandits are terrified. They've locked themselves inside gated communities. Many are leaving and going to Jammu. When it comes to non-locals who've been killed, there are reports that thousands have been taken to what are considered safe places, and now hundreds are boarding trains. You came from Srinagar just yesterday, Tuesday evening. Are these reports of the response correct? And if they are, how widespread are such responses?
You see, it would be unnatural for people not to feel scared, because there have been killings for which community or which religion they belong to. But scare is even among Kashmiri Muslims. And we are scared. You know, my people.
Everyone in the valley is scared.
Yeah, scare is there because, you know, some lunatic gets up and wants to kill someone just because that lunatic believes in some whatever ideology he or she has.
So fear is commonplace across the valley.
Fear at the moment, yes. It is fair. But I'll tell you one thing. It is my land. I will not leave it. My father was killed. I did not leave it. I will not leave it, come what may. And I would say the same about others. This is our land and we have to defend it.
Does it worry you that Sikhs and Hindus are now saying they're leaving?
Sikhs are not leaving. I don't think so. In fact, they issued
Pandits?
a statement. There are very few Pandits, and I'm sure, you know, I know many who, in fact, some who work for me, who have gone temporarily for a period of a week or 10 days. But we are, you know, there are government people in the government who are working there. We are trying in our...
So you're reasonably satisfied that Kashmiri minorities, Hindus and Pandits and Sikhs resident and living in Kashmir, are not going to leave. They may leave temporarily, but they will come back.
I hope. At the end of the day, they have to take a decision.
What about the non-locals? By some counts, according to the Hindustan Times, 3 or 4 lakh non-locals come to Kashmir every year to work. Now here, newspapers suggest they're leaving in their hundreds by trains. We've seen them on television. How worried are you that these people, fellow citizens, but also essential to the economy of Kashmir, are leaving? How worrying is that?
You see, we can't possibly even imagine an economy without them. They are our cherished assets. You know, they're very, very important for us in the infrastructure building and a host of other things. Normally, November is the time that they leave for home. But yes, they're leaving faster. You see them in groups which you normally wouldn't see in October or November. Because by 15th, 20th November, they leave for home because winter is not a working season in Kashmir. It's very cold. But yes, they are leaving partly because of the scare. And you can see them in groups, which you couldn't. Last October, you couldn't see them.
How worrying is the fact that they're leaving?
They have done it in the past also. You know, I'm just trying to lower this.
So it's not unusual
that
when there's tension, they leave.
Yeah, it has happened at least twice in the past when there have been such unfortunate killings.
You're making 2 very important points. One, this sort of departure by non-locals has happened at least twice. It's not unusual when there is trouble, when there is tension, when there are killings that they leave. And secondly, normally in November they do go. They're just going a little earlier this year.
Yeah. And you see, given the last 3 decades, you know, where I live, Sanat Nagar, there was a shop, a sweet shop, it was run by a gentleman from Bihar. We call him Lala. Lala never left. There was killing right front. The Air Force killing happened in front of him. He did not leave. Lala is still there even today. So hopefully there are such stories of hope and bravery.
Let's come to how serious the situation has become today. As you know, for weeks, the Lieutenant Governor's administration has been claiming that Kashmir is normal, it's peaceful. And recently, even army generals posted in Srinagar have been saying the same thing. Clearly, the killings of the last 20 days suggest that that's just rhetoric. The situation is anything but normal, anything but peaceful.
Look, I'll tell you, the unfortunate thing with current administration is that You know, even if you ask a vegetable vendor or an auto driver, he is mostly they are he's in Kashmir who sell vegetables or drive autos. They're experts in conflict because they've seen it with their own eyes for 30 years. They don't have to go through a file. What is happening, you could ask anybody on the streets, he or she could have predicted it. The problem is that the people who run our security or our administration and people like us, we live on two different planets. For them to have a cohesive collective response, we need to live on the same planet. They need to come off their high horse, talk to the people. This is our fight, people plus administration. Operationally, the state will fight it. Structurally, socially, psychologically, we will fight it.
You're making a very important point, and I'm going to take it part by part. First, the state. Are you saying that the state has been guilty not just of negligence, but also perhaps an intelligence lapse? People have been saying that there could be killings for quite a while. It's not new, it's not surprising that they're happening. So my joint question is, has the state been guilty of negligence and an intelligence lapse? Did they believe their rhetoric that everything was okay, drop their guard and become complacent?
Partly yes and partly no, because I'll tell you, this lone wolf, maybe it could be a lone wolf, or the British use the word now, bedroom fanatics or bedroom radicals. Very difficult to predict a terror attack.
So you don't blame the state?
I would I would partly blame them. I would not absolve them totally. No.
You
no
said
way.
they should get off their high horse. What does that mean?
You see, what you are saying basically, I'm just summing it up, is that their optimism could be fatal.
The belief that everything is okay.
Yes. That could be fatal.
You think it's made them complacent and negligent?
I think they need to understand the situation much more. I wouldn't want to go hammer and tongs against them at this crucial juncture.
But you're saying that they don't understand the situation.
They will have to go deeper. Basically is that they will have to... Look, just by invading Kashmir, by SPs who are non-locals, doesn't mean you've won a war. A local SP has a wealth of sources on the ground, human intelligence.
You're saying SPs brought from outside Kashmir don't
It's not
understand?
outside. No, they do good work. They do very good work.
But they don't understand.
But if they're new, you can't just get up somebody from IPS and tell them, okay, fine, now you run a very, very challenging situation.
So the administration under the governor is cut off.
I'll tell you, you don't throw your young IP officer at hungry lions. And that's what they've been doing. Not good for them and not good for us.
Is this what you meant, that they live on another planet when you talk to the state?
They typically live on another planet. Yes, they do. Yeah,
They're cut off. They're cut off.
They're cut off, yeah.
They don't understand.
They don't understand, no, not at all.
They don't have the right people.
I would not say the right people, but all I can say is that there is a huge room for improvement. And the first of all, Karan, I'll tell you one thing. One of the things that really astonishes me, that in the entire country, why isn't there an uproar about a selected government in J&K for the last 3 years now? And this is an indictment of the people of India, of the democratic traditions of India, that they're keeping quiet and acting like Gandhiji's three monkeys. While you send people from here, from I don't know where, to run the people because you believe that they're inefficient or incapable of running their own affairs.
You feel let down by the rest of the country.
Yeah, of course, I don't hold anything against the government. I mean, say they are political people.
But your fellow citizens have let you down.
Of course, the fellow citizens, of course. Who is fighting Kashmir? You see, even today, these are the one thing, Karan, which you want to make it clear, is that let the people of India know that if you look at it, shorn of politics and rhetoric, it is the people of Kashmir, Kashmiri Muslims, who have laid down their lives in defending India. They are the ones who have sacrificed most. I challenge them, get any records from Home Ministry. There are two bullets which kill in Kashmir, a Pakistani bullet and an Indian bullet. Kashmiri Muslims with a non-Indian bullet, okay, let's say non-Indian bullet, in their graves is in thousands. Why did they die for? Who did they die for? So that people like you are secure here, that we defend the borders. And how do you reward us? By taking our state away, by taking our special status away, and having a selected government sending somebody, I don't know from where, that you rule these people.
So you feel the people of India have turned their back on their fellow citizens?
They have, and they have. Yes.
You feel let down?
Of course I do, yeah. Who wouldn't? Wouldn't you if you were in my place?
In fact, you feel very unhappy and bitter.
Of course, why wouldn't? I'm saying, if I'm going to take away everything from you, why wouldn't?
Is it just Sajad Lone who feels like this, or is this also the feeling of the majority of people in the valley? Are you representing their views when you speak to me?
I would be very surprised that if any population, any peoples of any place are disempowered in this manner and they feel happy about. There is nothing.
So the Kashmiri people in the valley feel let
and
down.
in Jammu, and ask people in Jammu, even with the people of Ladakh, what have you given them? So-called they were saying they got Azadi from Kashmiri supremacy, only to be now enslaved by bureaucratic supremacy. Where are the Ladakhi people? Nowhere. It's the bureaucrats. Then IS Babu will come from Bengal and tell them what Ladakhi culture is. He will tell them how you have to run this, ABC, because you passed an exam. You are good at retention. So now you know everything, and the whole country, especially Ladakhis and Kashmiris, have to tolerate you and your idiosyncrasies. I know the best.
And this sense that not just the Kashmiris but the Ladakhis feel let down, they feel betrayed, they feel forgotten, as if the rest of the country has turned its back on them. This is a common feeling, a common sentiment in the valley.
I would, of course. Look, I'll tell you, Karan, there are two types of people in Kashmir. People like me, this is very important to listen to this, who believe in the concept of India. And there are others who don't. The whole engagement that Delhi today has or had in the past is based on people who don't believe in the concept of India. Your engagement has to be based on what I feel or people like me feel, who believe in the concept of India. Not you can't. It's like Dawood Ibrahim.
But the door is shut to you by the government.
Look, it's like a Dawood Ibrahim doing Bombay blasts. And you treat the people of Bombay based on what Dawood Ibrahim does. You can't do that.
Let me come back to something you said earlier. Earlier you were talking about two responses to the killings that were happening. One was the response of the state. You said they were on another planet. They are cut off. They don't understand. Sometimes they don't even have the right people. They brought in people from outside who don't have local knowledge. The other aspect of that answer, and I'm going back to it, I'm going back in the interview, was you talked about people like yourself who also are on another planet. Is there a sense in which informed, rich, influential Kashmiris like you need to do more to ensure that these killings don't happen, to reach out to the poor people who are getting killed? Because as you said, it's not people like you at the moment getting killed. Are you also, and people like you on another planet?
No. We could be, yes, we could all be in a state of delusion, but we are there on the ground, Karan. We are there on the ground, and there is very little. As I told you earlier in the interview, my own father was killed. I couldn't stop that killing.
I'll tell you why I asked this question. When the Sikhs 2 Fridays ago protested outside the Secretariat, there were many who said to the Indian Express, why is the majority community not protesting with us? Why are we alone?
This is another problem I have with Indian people. I'm Indian myself. Just because 3 people said something, that doesn't sum up Sikh community sentiment. Unfortunately, when it comes to Kashmir, you make very big decisions based on somebody saying somewhere, somebody said this, oh, okay, fine. You do so many surveys, opinion polls, not based on 3 people.
So you're saying the media in Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta misunderstands Kashmir, misreports Kashmir?
Of course they have. You all have. You all are guilty of it. I mean, come to think of it. The so-called liberal, there is a liberal media and a right-wing media. This liberal media has been highly illiberal when it comes to Kashmir. You have digested so many things which no civilized country's media would have ever done.
This, in a sense, then increases the gulf. Not only do Kashmiris feel let down, betrayed, bitter by the rest of the country, but the media also, which should interpret and understand, doesn't.
It is my point of view. It may not necessarily, this one particularly is my point of view.
About the media?
Yeah, and it may not be what the people in J&K think. But I, as a politician, as a Kashmiri, believe that there is... what I feel is that there are, like the liberal media has its own set of choices, which normally that luxury they wouldn't have in a Gujarat or a Haryana or a Delhi. Here they would come, yaar, Sajad acha hai.
Let's come back to the situation at the moment. The government's response to the killings is mass arrests. 700 or 800, by some counts 900 people have been arrested. Do these mass arrests actually mean anything? Or are they simply going to make people more bitter, more alienated, and turn a bad situation into one that's even worse?
A randomized response. Governments don't have the luxury of a randomized response. And nobody is talking about it.
And this is a randomized response?
Of course it's a randomized response. You're shooting in the dark. And yes, they will make it even worse. Why? I'm feeling bad and all of a sudden I'm being hauled up. I'm angry, why have they killed these poor people in my land? Why? And then you come and arrest me. Why am I being arrested? Or why is B being arrested? He is as pained as I am, as you are.
Let me go back to a question I asked earlier. At that point, you didn't believe this was a credible viewpoint, it was exaggerated. But I'm asking it again. Isn't this how the situation developed in 89 and 90, which led to those terrible dark days we've lived through? When I interviewed him last week, Umar Abdullah was sitting exactly where you are. He said to me, my fear is we could be pushed back into the dark days. You really don't think that's at all likely?
You know, I don't know. I would be surprised, about the migration, because there are not many pundits left there to migrate. The poor fellows, they migrated, in 90s. Whether it will be a replay, I can tell you with certainty one thing, that the worst is not over yet.
The worst is not over?
Unfortunately, is not over yet. We're going to see worse days.
But hang on a second. If the worst is not over, what more can happen?
Worst can happen, I don't know. I mean, say, in Kashmir, you don't know.
You mean more killings?
God forbid. Yes, it could be I'm worried for myself, I'm worried for my family, I'm worried for my workers.
You're talking of a possible return to the terror of the 90s again?
I'll tell you one
Killings,
thing.
bombings.
This is the problem when you say return of 90s.
Okay, leave return of 90s.
No, just the 90s never ended. That is where you and me differ. It was in some shade, it was degrees of 90. You go, but yes, the governments always have been able to
I take your point. The 90s never ended, so to talk about a return to the 90s becomes a bit academic.
Shades of 90.
But you think the potential for the situation to get worse is there and you're seriously worried about it?
Yeah, of course, yes.
This is not just something you're saying in an interview. You really, genuinely are worried.
Look, you see, if you look at the geopolitical situation, you are caught up. It seems, typically we would have thought that there was some international binding because of FATF. There was some international binding or maybe a scare. But there isn't. They're doing it unabashedly. They're doing it openly. And this is
Do you
much more.
believe that the hand of Pakistan is behind these killings?
It can't happen, without the support. We don't grow weapons there on trees. We grow apples. So they have to come from somewhere.
Do you think the situation could get worse as a result of the Taliban now coming to power in Kabul?
I don't know, but it could. It could.
So these are the many reasons why
there
you're
is an
really
ideological threat. I don't expect them to come here, no. But there is an ideological spillover that could take place.
But you genuinely believe that the potential to get worse is there and you're worried. You're really worried.
I'm worried. I'm not worried about the enemy. I'm worried our own defenses. I'm worried about an administration which...
You're worried about what happens to Kashmiris?
Yeah, I'm because I'm not in charge of the future. My children have to face the future. The person who is running here, my state today, or my place, we're not even a state. The person running J&K today, his children don't have to face tomorrow. My children have to face tomorrow. Yet I'm not in control of today. How bad can it get? You tell me.
I'm putting it in different language, but you're saying people who don't have an immediate and future contact with Kashmir are running Kashmir. In 2 years, they'll be posted out. They'll have no connection.
Yes.
But people like you, who will live your lives and your kids will live their lives in Kashmir, are not in control.
Or not in control of what happens in the future. And what we do today is very important what happens in the future. Today will script the future, both militarily, socially, politically, everything. When I say militarily, in terms of what military challenges or terror challenges we might have in the future, how bad it will get.
You said something very, very powerful. You're worried about Kashmiris, you're worried about there could be more killings, you're worried about there could be more terror. And then earlier, you also said you feel deeply ashamed about what's happening. And this brings to my mind a simple question. How is the last 20, 21 days impacted the majority of the Kashmiri people? And I'm talking clearly about Kashmiri Muslims. What do they feel? What is their mood? How do they view what's happening to their lives?
My hand on my heart, I'm yet to see a Kashmiri privately. Earlier on, we would have some things where, we would be in wonderment. How can this person say this? I have not met a single Kashmiri Muslim who is not pained, who is not angry, but yet helpless. There is no glory. There is no social sanctity to it. There is total stigma.
So Kashmiri people are pained and angry by what's happening.
Very pained and very angry. I haven't met a single person. I'm a politician. We meet at least minimum 30, maximum 40, 50 people a day. And I know, I'm very inquisitive. I probe, "Arey yaar, ye maar diya logon ko." And
One of
they're
the
very
most
pained.
beautiful qualities, it's Kashmiri culture, is Kashmirian. It's something the world has admired, it's something the rest of India has admired. Is it still intact? Has it been undermined? Is it weakening?
No, it's not. We are not doing it. We are not doing it. If there is a terror attack, if there is a rape attack in Delhi, I wouldn't hold you responsible. By no stretch of imagination should Indian people hold responsible Kashmiri Muslims for what is being done by fringe, lunatic fringe. And this is a curse all across the world. You might have criminals here, and we call them terrorists there. They are the same. You know, they're the same creed. They believe in violence. They don't believe in civilized ethos. They don't. So we can't be held responsible for that.
We're coming to the end of this interview. We've talked at great length about what's happened, about why you're ashamed about it, about your fears that there could be more killing, more terror. And you said this is a genuine pain, this is a genuine unhappiness all Kashmiris feel. What then would you want the government to do? What are the steps necessary to bring the situation back to a situation of comfort, a situation where you could look on your future without pain, without fear?
You know, I don't know what immediately. You see, terror attacks, stopping terror attacks immediately is very difficult. You know, I believe if small weapons have been brought in, smuggled in large numbers, it's very difficult. But structurally, you know, the structural response, I would think that, you see, where does this terrorist operate? Operates in a place which is alienated, which is living on a different planet. You have to give ownership of this place to the rightful owners, which
How?
is the people of J&K.
How?
You have to involve them. You can't just go, you have to, see, first
Are you
of all,
saying elections must be held immediately?
look, if I say elections must be held, then they will say that, he's in a hurry to fight elections. But my point is simple, Karan. If this is such a great model, then replicate it across the country, and maybe in Delhi also. If you think that it's such a wonderful model that you send a governor from the rest of the countries and they work well, then replicate it in Gujarat, in Haryana, in Uttar Pradesh.
Why only in Kashmir?
Why only in J&K? Are we not a part of India?
But obviously the government is not going to replicate what they've done in Kashmir and the rest of the country. It's a very good point you're making, but you know, it will only be rhetorical. This government's not going to do it. So what is it that you believe this government should do, which it can do? Replicate Kashmir and the rest of the country, it won't do. What is it that they can do? Is elections important? Is restoration of statehood important? Should that happen before elections?
I'll tell you something. Oh yeah, of course they should. Yeah.
When you say they should, which?
The
Statehood
state,
first.
yeah, they should.
Statehood before elections.
They should. Look, I'll tell you one thing. I would have said 370. I would have said 35A. That would be rhetoric. BJP is not going to give us 370 or 35A and commit suicide. They won't do that. So that would be rhetorical. Yes, our demand is in the court. And maybe at a future date, some government comes, we put that demand in front of that government. Because one thing that we need to tell the people of J&K also, that it is the people of India. It's the people's court where you will get it back. Or the judicial court.
I understand that.
Right.
As far as 370 and 35A are concerned, your hope lies either with the Supreme Court, when and if the Supreme Court hears it, or secondly, with a future government who perhaps believes restoring it is important. But for now, you don't believe the BJP is going to do it, and there's no point raising it with the BJP because they're not going to do it. So then what is it that you want the BJP to do now?
They should immediately restore statehood. The moment I walk out of this room, they should say, it is delayed, it's been delayed beyond a point.
And after that, elections?
Immediately.
Immediately.
No, it is a sin. It is a sin. It's like living in sin by not having an elected government in a democracy.
Do you believe that restoration of statehood and the immediate holding of elections after that will be like releasing the pressure from a pressure cooker?
Yeah, it would be partly, but it won't be a remedy in all. We'll have to make much more remedial situations, remedial steps.
But that would have to be done by an elected government.
That had to be done by an elected government. And Karan, the biggest problem that we have, and that's across the country, is we know the best attitude. You have radical problems in Europe, and you see, you you have programs, I've forgotten the name, Prevent program in the UK. There is nothing wrong in looking at de-radicalization programs across Europe, other places, rather than thinking that we know the best. We know the
This
best.
is a very important point you're saying. You're saying look at the way de-radicalization programs are structured and conducted in the UK or in the West and copy them. Learn from them. Learn from them.
I'm not asking of copying, I'm talking of emulating. Because imitating and emulating are two different things, right? If you think there is some overlap, do it. If you don't, fine. But don't believe that putting 700 people behind the bars because a terrorist attacks someone, is going to
But you're
help.
saying a very important thing. You're saying there is a need to have a proper, thoughtful de-radicalization program, emulate what they're doing in the West, but you do believe there's a need for de-radicalization. And the other thing you're saying is these mass arrests of 700 actually make the situation worse.
Not only that, they also make mockery of a concept called integration or reintegration. People who have picked up gun 30 years back and now reintegrated in the society, you can't now reintegrate them with terror by putting them in jail. That's what they're doing. In some cases, people who have nothing to do with violence for the last 3 decades.
This will just embitter people.
Yeah.
Tell me something. I've heard you very clearly say immediate restoration of statehood, as you said, as soon as I walk out of this room, restore it. And you also want immediate elections after that. One of the problems is that the political parties that seemed so united in 2019, 2020, now in Kashmir are divided. When elections happen, will you actually have a united Kashmiri government that reflects the people, or will you end up with a hung parliament because the Abdullahs, the Muftis, the Sajad Lones, who were all together once, are now separated?
No, I would allow democracy to play as it plays in any other part of the country. It's our democratic right to bicker and fight each other.
Don't expect something different of Kashmir when you can't get it in the rest of the country. This is a democratic right.
Right, yeah, this is differentness is what democracy is about, not sameness. Sameness is what Delhi says, ek jaise ho jao. We have more subscribers of differentness.
My last question. You made very clear what your fears are. You've explained to me how you feel ashamed, how you're also scared about the future. You made very clear what you think the government should do. Suppose the government doesn't respond. After all, 2 months and more have gone by since the Prime Minister met all of you. One thought at that point of time in June that they would immediate action to follow. Nothing happened. How do you view the next 12 months in the Valley if no steps are taken along the lines you've suggested?
Look, I wouldn't say 12 months. I wouldn't be like this government, and I wouldn't predict victory in a test match after 2 overs have been played. I would not announce victory on the first day or win too far. 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever it is. Whatever I have said, they have to do it anyway. They will do it, they have to do it. And I wouldn't say 12 months, I would say that the conflict is far from over. Please do your homework well. Please,
Is time on the Delhi government side?
No, I wouldn't say time. You see, conflicts have huge timelines, massive.
But if the conflict can get worse, and you said a moment ago very forcefully and emotionally things could get worse, then clearly time is not on the Delhi government side. Mr. Modi must act now.
I'll tell you, for the government, I'll tell you, you have a problem in China on the borders. You have a problem with this, as I said, this possible radical ideological spillover. And then you have a terror problem for the last 3 decades. It is the people of Kashmir who you will need, come what may, to fight it. Name one place in the entire world in the last 100 years where you have fought people-less wars. People, they are an overarching entity there in any war that you fight.
So you're saying an important thing. As the international situation turns steadily adverse, the importance of the people of Kashmir to the security of India grows greater and greater. Don't ignore them.
Yes.
Reach out to them.
Yes.
Settle the problem they face.
Yes.
This is why, again, you say immediate statehood, immediate elections, right? Move on it.
And I say, follow the Constitution of India. I'm not asking to follow any other constitution. Follow in letter and spirit the Constitution of India.
My very last question, how confident are you that Mr. Modi will do any of the things you're saying?
Well, it depends how much pressure you people put on him.
You really believe it depends upon the media to put pressure?
Not media. I'm talking of the people of India. I really think
But are the people of India showing any sign of putting that
they're in a
pressure?
state of sleep at the moment. Let's
But the
hope
people
they
of India,
wake
as you
up.
said, have turned their back on Kashmir.
Let-
You feel let down by them.
I said they're in a state of sleep. Let's hope they wake up.
But there's a contradiction.
Let's hope
The
they wake
pressure
up.
to get Mr. Modi to move has to come from the people of India, and yet the same people of India, you feel, have let down the Kashmiris and turned their back on them.
Yes, certainly. You see, it might take time, but I will tell you one thing: the what do we call it? The exigencies of running a state will ensure. That's another pressure.
But at the moment, there's a terrible conundrum over here. You need the people to support you. The people, however, have turned their back on you.
Yeah, and are sleeping. I hope they don't sleep for far too long.
Sajad Lone, thank you very much indeed. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.